Friendsgiving is upon us. So I've had a lot of relatives reach out to me for side dish ideas to take to their parties for Friendsgiving. And I've compiled some. You might find this helpful. These casserole dishes I love to make during the holiday dinner season and, Friendsgiving as well. So I hope you find these helpful. Here we go. To get started, I am going to make rice. Here I have 1 cup of pre-washed rice. I'm using medium grain because I have lots of it, but long grain definitely works. 1 large celery stick that I chopped, half of an onion. This is a small onion that I chopped, 1 large clove of garlic, and here I have some chicken broth. You could use homemade or store-bought. I had 2 cups of water and 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder. You definitely can skip the bouillon powder and just make your own broth or buy store-bought. In a preheated pot with 2 tablespoons of cooking oil, I'm going to add my pre-washed rice, and I'm going to toast it for about 5 minutes over a medium to medium-low heat. Now I'm going to add my chopped onion, chopped celery, and saute until my onions are translucent. Now I'm going to add my clove of minced garlic, saute for another minute. Now it's time to add my chicken broth. And because the bouillon powder has sodium in it, I don't need to add salt. But if you're using a low sodium store-bought or homemade, you may need to add salt to taste. Now that it's simmering, I'm going to cover with the lid, lower the heat, and cook for 18 minutes. Now I'm going to shut off the heat. It's been about 18 minutes, and I'm not going to lift the lid. I'm going to let it set for about 5 to 10 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes, so I'm going to lift the lid, fluff, and set it aside until I'm ready to use it. Today I'm going to make a cream sauce from scratch. If you prefer using the canned condensed cream soups for this recipe, I have an older broccoli cheese rice casserole recipe that I will link somewhere throughout this video. So in a preheated pan, I've added 2 tablespoons of oil, 8 ounces of chopped mushrooms. Over a high heat, I'm going to saute. Once the mushrooms are sauteed, I'm going to lower the heat to about a medium-low heat, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, melt it down. Now I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. This is going to create a roux and will be the base of this cream sauce. I'm just going to mix, combine, and cook for about 45 seconds over a medium to medium-low heat. Nothing on high. You don't want to burn this. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder, and because the bouillon powder is salty already, I don't need to add salt to this. I'm going to add 1½ to 1 3/4 cups of water, and I'm just going to combine until thickened. I'm going to add 1 cup of heavy cream, give it a mix, and bring to a gentle simmer. Here I'm going to add 4 ounces of American processed cheese. This is the Velveeta brand, and I'm going to combine, mix, and melt it into the cream sauce. The cream sauce is ready. I'm going to start combining everything together. To the rice, I'm going to add thawed chopped broccoli. Here I thawed a 10-ounce box of chopped broccoli. I'm going to add it right into the rice and quickly mix it. I'm going to pour in that cheesy chicken mushroom cream sauce. Give that a mix. And before I forget, I'm also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon of cracked black pepper. Now, if you want to season this with maybe onion powder, garlic powder, that's fine. You can do that. Now I'm going to add some shredded sharp cheddar cheese. This is 4 ounces. I'm going to reserve some of that for the top of this casserole. Once you give this a mix, it's ready to be put into a buttered baking dish. I'm going to be using a 2.7 quart baking dish. This is an 8 by 12. I'm going to pour that in, add the reserved shredded cheddar cheese on top, cover this with foil, and I'm going to bake this in a preheated oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, covered for 25 minutes. Then I'm going to uncover it and let it continue baking for another 15 to 20, or until the top is golden brown and bubbly. Once this is done, I'm going to remove from the oven, let it set for about 10 to 15 minutes, then serve. Today, I'm going to make hash brown casserole. I'm going to do it a little differently than my last two videos when I made this. I'm just testing something out today, but I'm starting with, this is a 1 pound, 14 ounces, 30 ounces of shredded hash browns. You could also use the like cubed hash browns. I'll also be using 8 ounces of Colby Jack cheese. You could use cheddar cheese or the cheese of your choice. I'll be adding a 12 fluid ounce can of evaporated milk, cream of chicken soup. You can sub that with cream of mushroom, cream of celery, whatever you like. 1 large egg. Here I have 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, dried parsley, some smoked paprika, granulated garlic powder, granulated onion powder. I'm going to be adding about 8 ounces of sour cream. Here I have some pepper, salt to taste, and it's going to be good. Oh, and I'm also going to be using like a 9 by 13 baking dish. And I already have it buttered with like a tablespoon or 2 of butter. So the first thing I'm going to do to make life easier, I'm going to add my evaporated milk into this large measuring cup. And I'm going to add my cracked large egg, or my large egg, not cracked. And now I'm just going to give it a mix. I just think this is just an easier way to mix and evenly distribute the egg. Okay, so here I have, these are frozen. Well, they've been sitting on my counter for a little bit, but I am working with semi-frozen shredded hash browns. I'm gonna start adding all of my ingredients, just put it all into the bowl. So here I have my can of condensed cream of chicken soup. Like I stated earlier, you can use cream of mushroom in place of this. Whatever cream of condensed soup that you like, use that. I'm going with the chicken. Okay. I'm also going to use 8 ounces of sour cream going in. This is the rest of my container. Okay. I'll go ahead and add my egg evaporated milk mixture. I'm just putting it everywhere. Now I'm going in with my seasonings and salt and what have you. So a half teaspoon of granulated onion powder works for this. If you want a full, maybe I'll go with the full teaspoon. I like it. The same thing, a half teaspoon to a full teaspoon of garlic, granulated garlic powder. Like a 1/4 teaspoon to a half teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm going to go in with some dried parsley. Here I have some cracked black pepper, like a 1/4 teaspoon to a half teaspoon. Let's see here. I'm going to go in with a half teaspoon of salt. And before I forget my ingredient here, my 6 tablespoons of melted butter. Now I'm just going to give everything a really good mix. And then I will add some cheese, but I'm going to mix this first. I want this to be mixed really well. It smells great already. Now for the cheese. I'm going to add just a handful, maybe a cup of cheese into the hash browns. And then the rest of the cheese is going to go on the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just place my hash browns into my baking dish. And actually I have such, this is kind of heavy. And I'm working with a buttered 9 by 13 baking dish. That's what you'll want to work with when making this. And if I'm working with 30 ounces of shredded hash browns, if you got like the 2-pound bag, that also works for this recipe. It's just a little extra, 2 more ounces of shredded hash browns. Okay, spread this out. The cheese goes on top. I'm gonna bake this in a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for probably 55 to 60 minutes because you're working with frozen hash browns. If they're not frozen, the cook time will vary. Now, I'm gonna do covered for about 35 minutes, and then the rest of the cook time, I'm going to uncover it so it sort of gets a cheese crust. There we go. I'll do the best I can here to spread it out. And I love these cheesy hash browns as a holiday side or just any regular day when I'm making roasted chicken. So good. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna bake this covered. It's gonna take about an hour of cook time at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, but I am gonna uncover it at some point so I can get a cheese crust. But you don't have to, you can just keep it covered the entire time. Okay, see you in an hour. Okay, so it's been halfway through the cook time. I'm actually trying not to burn myself. I'm gonna carefully remove this and just let it continue cooking. I really want the cheese to kind of get bubbly and brown on top. Okay, so this is done. Okay. Be careful, sorry. Okay, I think I could just swim in this. Well, not now because I'd burn myself, but you'll want to let this set before you cut into it, or you can just cut into it and burn yourself, but it's going to be good. I have over here some chopped fresh parsley and chives, and that's what I'm going to garnish this with, and it's going to be good. And I did achieve a really nice little crusty area around the edges, a little bit on the top, so that's great. And it was a full hour because these were frozen. So 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 full hour worked for this. And I uncovered it halfway through. So let's take some of this and just sprinkle it on top. And you can add more as people serve this for themselves. So good. Today I'm making corn casserole pudding my way. This is gonna be good. Okay, so here I'm going to make a Jiffy corn pudding my way, and one of the ingredients I like to add is bacon. So I'm gonna start with, this is 12 ounces of bacon going into a cold pan. Now I'm going to turn on the heat, and I'm just going to cook the bacon and render out most of the fat. So once the bacon is done, I'm going to put it on this plate with a paper towel just so it can kind of soak up any residual grease. Oops. Now I'm going to remove the bacon from the grease. By the way, reserve the grease. It makes a great addition to flour tortillas, or to help you start a roux for maybe something like cream gravy. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to reserve my bacon grease. Here we go. Just pour it into a heat-proof dish. Here I have the fresh corn kernels from 3 cobs of corn, and all I did was just cut away the kernels from the cob. I'd say about 1.5 cups of fresh corn kernels works. So I'm using the same pan that I cooked the bacon in. It had a little bit of the bacon drippings, and I'm just going to saute and cook the kernels. Get the rest of that in there. There we go. I'm going to cook this for about 5 minutes in a little bit of the bacon drippings. Once the corn is done, I'm just going to place it back into my bowl. And you'll probably want to let it cool before you add it to your batter. So here in my large bowl, I'm going to be using 4 eggs in this recipe. I'm going to add 1 can of cream style corn. Here I have 1 cup of sour cream. I'm going to be using 1 box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. Add that in there. I'm also going to add 1 stick of butter melted. I'm going to actually scrape that out. Here I have about it's 1.5 cups of cheese. Just add it all in. I'm going to really just start dumping all the ingredients in here and just make a big mess. Okay, so you could also add a drained can of sweet corn. I'm going to add my fresh corn that I quickly sauteed in the bacon drippings. And you can give it a mix. Now, essentially with the ingredients that I've added, you have a really nice, corn pudding, Jiffy corn casserole, mix. But I'm going to add my bacon. This was the chopped bacon that I cooked. And this is 1.5. You could add 1 or 2 diced jalapenos. I removed the seeds and gave it a chop. And if you hear noise, that's my kids playing. It already smells great. So now I'm just going to whisk and mix for about 5 minutes. You could also do this with your electric mixer. Here I have a baking pan. 12 by 8 should work for this. And I'm going to add maybe 1.5 tablespoons of my bacon grease and just grease your baking pan. You could also use some softened butter if you prefer, but why not? Bacon grease works great. Okay, so now I'm going to pour my cornbread casserole corn pudding mixture. And I gotta tell you, this smells amazing. This is probably my favorite way to make this. I know for holiday dinners, people, just add the corn. Maybe some people add the cheese. Some people don't add cheese, but I like fresh jalapeno with the bacon and the corn. It just works for me. Okay, so that's in. I'm going to bake this in a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes or until it's still a little jiggly and it's kind of like crusty golden brown on the edges. Okay, so it has been about 45 minutes. Yeah, that's done. I'm gonna take that out. Okay, so this is just golden brown, fluffy, light deliciousness. I'm gonna let this set for 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna cut into it and show you just how tender and moist this corn casserole slash corn pudding my way is. Okay, so while that is setting, here I have some honey that is starting to crystallize, and I'm just going to make this honey butter drizzle to go on top of the corn casserole. That's optional. Somebody, you guys might think that is a weird thing to add to this, but I love it. The smoky flavor from the bacon, and I'm having there it goes. And the jalapeno, the spice and heat from the jalapeno, it's just so good. There it goes. Here we go, like 2 tablespoons I think works. I'm making such a big mess. Let's do this. And you're just gonna let that melt down and gently simmer. You're really not going to boil the honey. So once it starts to kind of melt the butter, you're good to go. Perfect. Right on top. Today I'm making a creamy green bean casserole with a homemade cream sauce. So to start, I'll be using 2 cans of green beans. I prefer the French style green beans, but one of these is cut green beans. You could also use fresh. I will link my older recipe video using fresh green beans. Here I'm going to be using some fried onions, and for those of you looking for the original French's green bean casserole recipe, here it is. You could pause this and screenshot it or write it down. I'm also going to be using 1 pint of heavy cream. Sometimes I use evaporated milk. If that's more convenient, you could try that. I'll also use 6 ounces of bacon, half of a small onion diced, 1 pint of fresh mushrooms. These are white button mushrooms that I've sliced and chopped. Here I have 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm going to season with some onion powder, garlic powder, and cracked black pepper, and a pinch of salt, basically to taste. So to start this, in a cold pan, I'm going to add my bacon, and I'm going to turn the heat on. Doing this will help render more of that bacon fat. So I'm just going to cook this. Now that I've rendered a little bit of that bacon fat, I'm going to add my chopped or diced onion. And I'm just going to continue to cook the bacon and saute the onion until translucent. Now I'm going to add my mushrooms and continue to saute and cook. So I'd like to mention that if you are not a fan of mushrooms or bacon in this, you can exclude it. What you'll need to do is add 3 tablespoons of butter and saute your onions. And then from there you can work on your cream sauce. Here I'm just going to sprinkle in some of that garlic and onion powder. 1/4 teaspoon of each works. Give that a mix. I'm going to add some freshly cracked black pepper. And the pepper and the onion powder, garlic powder, and even the salt is to taste. Now I'm going to add my all-purpose flour, give that a mix, and it's going to create a roux. And once that's cooked for about 45 seconds to a minute, you'll want to add your heavy cream. Give it a mix until it starts to gently simmer. And once it's mixed and combined, you'll want to add your pinch of salt, and that is to taste. And now I'm going to add my drained green beans, give it a mix, and that's done. I'm going to add this to a baking dish. You'll need at least a 2-quart baking dish or something like an 8 by 12. If you're using a 9 by 13, you might need to double this recipe. So now I'm going to sprinkle in just a little bit of my fried onions, give that a mix. I'm going to cover this in aluminum foil, and I will be baking this in a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. Then I'm going to uncover it And of course, you'll want to do this carefully. It's probably best if you don't do this while in the oven. But I'm going to sprinkle on a little bit more of those fried onions and let it continue baking for another 5 minutes. And then it's done. I'm going to let this set for about 10 to 15 minutes and then serve. Welcome back, everybody. And if you are new here, welcome to my channel. And if you consider subscribing, please be sure to click that bell notification to make sure you get all of my latest videos. Okay, today I am making a delicious yellow squash casserole, and here's how I do it. First, I am going to cook some bacon. Here I have a cold pan. I have not preheated it, and to that I am going to add diced bacon. I will be using 6 ounces in this recipe, and the type of bacon I'm using is a thick cut slice. Use what you have on hand, but I am using 6 ounces. So I'm going to try to cook this and render a lot of fat at the same time, and once my bacon is cooked, I am going to remove most of that rendered fat. Thanks to a commenter in one of my past videos for the tip using a cold pan, then adding your bacon to render a lot of fat. It really does help. Okay, so now to my cooked bacon, I'm going to add 1 small onion diced. You can add the amount of onion that you like, or you can exclude it if you're not big on onions, but I love it. So I'm adding 1 whole small onion to this, and I'm just going to saute and cook it along with my bacon. Okay, so my bacon is fully cooked, my onions have softened and are translucent, they are nicely sauteed. So now I'm going to add 4 medium yellow squash to this. I basically slice them thinly, not too thin, if I had to guess maybe 1/4 inch thick. So I've added it to my pan and I'm just going to cook this and saute it. I'm also going to be adding 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cracked black pepper, and on a medium to medium-high heat, I am going to saute this for around 3 to 5 minutes. Then after sauteing, I am going to add 1/4 cup of water, and I'm just going to sort of start scraping up some of that fond, and this will also help me cook out this squash to soften it. Next, I'm going to cover it with the lid and reduce the heat to a low to medium heat and cook it for 10 minutes. Then my squash is done, and it's not necessarily mushy, but it definitely has softened and cooked. And I'm going to set it aside until I need it. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to my cream sauce. Here I have a bowl, and to that I am going to add 1 large egg. Next, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of heavy cream. And now I'm just going to combine and mix this well. Now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. I'm also going to add cracked black pepper to taste. Then I'll be adding 4 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese, and I'll be adding some Parmesan cheese. Now what I like to do is use 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese in this entire recipe and divide it. Half of it will go into the mixture and the other half will go into the cracker crumble crust on top. But I actually just dumped all of it right into this mixture. So I will put the measurements and weights of the ingredients in the description below, but just know that I typically like to add half of the Parmesan cheese in the mixture and half for the crust. Okay, so here I'm crushing 20 Ritz crackers. These are the round butter crackers. Once they're crushed, I'm going to add them to a bowl, and I'm also going to add some Parmesan cheese to this. Again, half of the Parmesan cheese, so I had to add a little extra today because of my mistake earlier. So this, if I had to guess, is 2 tablespoons of grated Parmesan cheese. I'm going to give that a mix, and to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Again, going to combine it well, and this is done. This is going to top our delicious yellow squash casserole. So now I'm ready to put this casserole together. Here I have a buttered oval casserole dish. I believe this is a 1.7 quart casserole dish. You don't have to use this brand or kind of dish. Maybe something like an 8x8 square baking dish will work for this. So I have buttered this, and now I'm going to mix everything together, but I want to show you. This squash has rendered a lot of liquid, so I'm going to remove the liquid before combining everything and placing it into my baking dish. Okay, so now I'm going to speed things up a bit. Okay, so those were 5 casserole ideas that I love to make, especially during the holiday season and your Friendsgiving dinners. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you give these recipes a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.